This happened when I was 17, and due to my parents taking a weekend trip, I was staying in the house alone. I was a sensible kid, so my parents knew that me being alone wouldn't mean any crazy parties or anything. I'd just stay in all weekend and study for finals. My mom called me at around 8 o'clock to see if I was okay. I could tell from her childish laugh that she'd had a few drinks, and I insisted that I was fine and she should go enjoy herself. After that, I poured myself a juice and went up to my room to study. The first thing I noticed was that some of the items were knocked over around my window ledge, ornaments and keepsakes. The window had been open, so I figured a gust of wind was responsible. I closed the window, repositioned the items, and started studying on my bed. I had my headphones on, so all other sounds were blocked out. I was fully absorbed in my studying, so I didn't notice my flashing phone or any other sounds. It was only when I went to turn the textbook page that I glanced at my phone and saw that I had a couple of messages from my neighbor, Jake. The messages said that I was full of surprises and he hoped I enjoyed my visitor. I had no idea what he was talking about. Jake went to my school and was known for being a prankster, so I thought he was just pulling my leg. Still, it seemed strange that he would just randomly send me that message. I was about to go back to studying when I heard it, a rustling sound. It was coming from beneath my bed. I stayed completely still and just listened. I wasn't imagining. There was definitely movement coming from under there. My heart was pounding as I picked up my phone and texted Jake, asking him why he said that stuff. He replied instantly, saying he'd seen someone climb in through my bedroom window. I replied telling him that I hadn't invited anyone over and that I could hear something moving beneath my bed. Then I sent him another message telling him to call the cops. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to stay there knowing someone was under my bed, but I was freaked out that if I ran for it, they'd grab me. I just sat there trembling as I stared at the closed door. The rustling continued, and I knew I couldn't just sit there and wait for them to strike. So I started a countdown in my head, and on 0, I made myself leap off my bed and rush towards the door. But as soon as my feet touched the floor, a hand shot out from under the bed and grabbed my ankle. I screamed and shook my leg, but the grip was firm. I held onto the bed frame to steady myself and slammed my other foot onto their arm. I heard this low-pitched whine, and the grip loosened enough for me to get away. I raced down to the house and went over to Jake's. It turns out he hadn't called the police as he thought I was joking. When he saw how terrified I was, he realized the mistake he'd made and he called them. When they showed up, they found my bedroom window wide open and the items on the window ledge knocked over. The intruder had fled, meaning I'll never know who they were, why they climbed into my bedroom, or what they would have done if I hadn't managed to free myself from their grip. Even though this happened years ago, I haven't been alone at night in the house ever since. And still, to this day, I always shine a flashlight under my bed before I go to sleep. My roommate was spending the summer in the Hamptons with her family, so I was left home alone. This didn't bother me because at the time I was holding down 3 jobs, so when I was at home, most of it was spent catching up on chores or sleeping. On this particular day, when I got home from my serving job, I saw this young woman standing across the road from my house. She had a cropped pink denim jacket on and wore a black bow in her hair. I figured she was waiting for someone in one of the neighboring houses, so I just smiled over at her to be polite, then went inside my house. I made myself something to eat with the intention to shower and then go to bed. As I went to put my plate in the dishwasher, I looked through the kitchen window and saw that girl was still standing across the street. She was staring directly at my house. Knowing that she was looking this way made me feel uncomfortable, so I closed the blinds, poured myself a drink, and then prepared to go to bed. I was just about to leave the kitchen when I heard a loud knock at the door. I instantly got this nagging feeling that I knew exactly who was at the door. I peered through the blinds, and that girl was gone. There was another knock at the door, so I walked over to it and opened it to see the very same girl standing on my porch, her exaggerated smile illuminated by the porch light. I asked her if I could help her, and she asked me something weird. She asked me if I was alone. A stranger showing up late at night and asking if you were home alone is never a good sign, so I shook my head and lied and told her that my roommate was here too. She just said okay and then turned and walked away. The whole thing left me feeling unsettled and confused, so I triple-checked that the doors were locked. Then before I went to bed, I peeked through the kitchen blinds and felt sickened with dread when I saw her. That girl was standing across the street and she was staring straight at my house. I tried telling myself she was just messing around and she'd soon get bored and leave. Only, my gut feeling was screaming at me that something was wrong. This left me feeling too anxious to sleep, so I stayed up and watched a movie. About 20 minutes into the movie, there was another knock on the door. I didn't want to answer it, but just the thought of that girl standing outside my door freaked me out. There was another knock on the door, but I just sat there hugging my pillow and feeling sick with fear. The door knocked one last time, and again, I didn't dare answer it. Then there was silence. When I eventually found the courage to move, I went into the kitchen, peered through the blinds, and saw the girl in the denim jacket standing across the street, staring at my house. It was horrible knowing she was there, but not knowing why she was targeting me. I reassured myself that she couldn't get in the house and that it was fine. My frantic mind meant I needed to double-check that I'd locked the doors. On checking the front door, I noticed something beneath my foot. A piece of folded paper had been pushed underneath the door. My heart was pounding as I picked it up and unfolded it. In capital letters, the note said, "I know you're alone." I dropped the note and ran back into the kitchen to peer through the blinds. The girl in the denim jacket was gone. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to call the police and waste their time, but I was so freaked out that the girl would return. In the end, I called my friend down the street, and she told me that she and her brother would drive around my house to make sure no one was there. 20 minutes later, she called back and confirmed that she didn't see anyone around at all. I never saw the girl in the denim jacket again. I don't live in that house anymore, and I try to avoid being alone at home as much as I can. Sometimes, when I stare across and spot someone walking past, my heart begins racing, and for a split second, I think it's that girl, and that she's back to finish what she started. My friend knew I was having family issues, so while he was away on vacation, he let me stay in his apartment on the understanding that I'd keep it tidy and water his plants. At first, it was good to get away from the tension at home and have some headspace. I'd come from a quiet neighborhood, so being in an apartment in the heart of downtown took some getting used to. There were always police sirens, people shouting, revving engines, that sort of stuff. On my third day there, I headed out to the grocery store for supplies. I went in the middle of the day and made sure I was as quick as possible. When I got back to the apartment building, I noticed that the elevator had been taped off. This was annoying, as it had been working half an hour ago when I used it. That meant I had to trek up 7 flights of stairs with my heavy bags. When I finally got up there and walked over to the apartment door, as I placed one of the bags on the floor so I could find my keys, I noticed something to the side of the door handle, a small square drawn in chalk. I rubbed the chalk and it smudged across the door. I didn't recall seeing that there before, and I definitely hadn't drawn it. I peered along the hall and then went inside the apartment. I got a towel so I could wipe the chalk away. Then I unpacked everything and spent the afternoon gaming online. Then that evening, when I was coming back from the bathroom, I heard something coming from the hall. An eerie woman's laugh. I thought it had stopped, but it didn't. I kept on hearing that laugh. It was really creepy, like something straight out of a horror movie. Eventually, I walked over to the door and opened it to see who was out there, but no one was there. I walked up and down the hallway to check, but there was no sign of anyone. When I returned to the apartment, I grabbed the door handle, and that's when I saw it there, the chalk square. It was bigger than the last one, and with thicker lines. Whoever drew it went over it multiple times. I grabbed my towel and wiped it away again. It made me feel uncomfortable knowing someone had deliberately drawn this there twice. That, combined with the laughter, just didn't feel right. I went into the apartment, locked the door, put the chain on, and tried to disconnect from all of this. I couldn't focus on my video games, and I was just feeling on edge. Being there, realized how unfair I was probably being to my family, and I sent them a message telling them I was sorry and that I'd be home soon. As I hit send, the woman's eerie laugh came from the hall. I ran to the door, unlocked it, removed the chain, and flung it open, ready to catch that laughing woman then and there. But I stared out at a dimly lit, empty hallway. Then I saw them all over the door, chalk squares, about 20 of them, all varying in size and a number of lines. I shouted, "Hello!" along the hall, but no one answered. This was enough. I couldn't stay in this place any longer. So I packed my stuff and left. I ran to the staircase and hurried down them 2 steps at a time. I was so desperate to get out of there. When I reached the bottom door, I went to push it, and I noticed another of those chalk squares next to the door handle. But there was something written above it. My initials. I pushed open that door and I ran out of there. The next day I texted my friend telling him what happened and apologizing for leaving so hastily. When he returned to his apartment, he told me everything was fine and there were no chalk squares. I hadn't wiped the last batch of squares away, which meant that if what he was saying was true, then someone else had. I think he thought I'd gone crazy. I know what I saw and heard. Things were never the same between me and my buddy after that, and we stopped talking. As for the chalk squares and that eerie laughter, maybe it was just someone messing with me, or maybe it was something else. I don't know, and I don't want to know, but just thinking about it still leaves me with this uneasy feeling